G'day, it is a super hot day. About to go for my interview, Tribe FM, first interview about the book Shaping Tomorrow's Man. So wish me luck.
91.1 Tribe FM, and you're here riding the wave until 2 o'clock, which is then Jay's going to come in. But what we're going to be shifting a different gear now, which is a really lovely thing. We have the wonderful opportunity to be chatting to Albert Jamay about his new book, which is called Shaping Tomorrow's Man. And he's come into 40 years in film, television, being the manager of Channel 44. You've just done everything. You're a dancer. Can you bust a couple of moves for us?
Oh, if I only brought my tap shoes, buddy, I'd break out something for you. Not the ballet shoes anymore. That's long gone.
No.
Yeah.
But to tell you what, the thing is, like, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've seen you working with the kids at the Waldorf School and others. And, it's such great moments, especially for my kids. They really, connected with what you were offering them and, offering them an entry into some sort of art and obviously expression. How important is that expression for kids in general? But I know we're going to be talking about blokes, but just...
Yeah, but it kind of ties in. It really does tie in because I've been thinking about my experience. That was about 12 years I did that, running that performing arts school. And I think even though we originally did it because we wanted somewhere for our kids to go, when we realised there was a gap in the market and looking for work, so we thought, well, this is our background, we could do this here.
Yeah.
But what I found really interesting and the pivotal moments was, and your kids, I've taught them both, so I remember yours and hundreds of others, when they get up on stage and they actually push past their comfort zone, and that takes a bit of courage because, it scares the shit out of you, mate. It really does when you're up there and in front of all these people, your family, friends, people you don't know, and you've got to act, dance or sing. Yep. It's really scary, but the moment they push through that, thinking they can't do it, they get off stage and they are so elated. They are just lifting off the ground. And I've heard that from parents coming back and saying, my God, I didn't realise what this was doing for them. It wasn't just an activity, after school activity, it was actually building confidence that they took into the rest of their life. And I guess it's kind of the theme of what I've been doing without realising it.
I mean, when aren't you acting? I mean, in a sense, like, you're like trained for a job. It's about remembering if you're going to a university or you're going to some sort of TAFE or whatever, it's about remembering dialogue. It's about learning the lingo, and being able to deliver that to the people who want your service. So in a sense, and you've got to act that role. You've got to learn to act that role. If it's whatever that is,
you do. But on the flip side, there are so many situations where you have to improvise. When someone forgets their lines, they forget their routines, something goes to crap, and then suddenly you've got to go. The show must go on. So that level of resilience that these kids built up because they realised, I can't just down tools. I've got to go back on stage and someone's forgot their line. I've got to make it up. And in real life, that's a great tool, when something, falls apart and you're going, well, hang on, what's plan B? And you're thinking on the fly. And that's a great tool for kids to learn. And I know I started when I was 7 or 8, so in the theatre. So I know that I've learnt that from a young age of the show must go on.
And I mean, and that's just life, isn't it? So how's you've written plays. So when did the seed of I'm going to write a book come in?
Well, it's funny because it's something I feel like has been going on probably a lot longer than I thought. Look, I was a curious kid. I used to really be interested. Looking back, I could see my curiosity around people's behaviours, but I didn't attribute it to anything. I was just like, okay, that's fine. And then when I was a young dad, I was only 22 when kids came along accidentally, and so blessed that it did happen at that time. It made me start to look at myself, going, oh shit, I don't know how to be a dad. I better look at myself and try to figure out. I have to be different. I have to, and that was a time of panic, but it was a lot of spiritual development over those years to just become better at what I was trying to do to look after these little humans.
When you say better, what yardstick are you?
Yeah, that's
coming to
a
that?
good question. I think simply because I didn't know what I was doing. So better had to be, I've got to be a role model for this kid, so I think it was just ingrained that, you have to just be good at perfect dad. I think back then, and even now, some people feel like they've got to be perfect parents.
Yeah.
Which is not, looking back now and going, that's such crap. But
No, I'm lucky. I'm a perfect parent.
oh, mate, you're the shining model.
Thank you.
So I guess
Well said.
I guess from there, I always dabbled into my own personal development, and I started writing some ebooks over the years. Just dabbled in it, and I'd go to men's retreats. I would go to meditations. My mum got me into it when I was 17, meditational practices, and so I think I've kind of been on the fringe of that. So I started thinking, well, I've written a lot of plays, I've written short films, all that fictional script writing, but I really had something inside of me. And for 30 years, I've just been bubbling at these ideas. I only just remembered today when I was writing some notes for the interview that I dabbled in some early ebooks. One of them, it makes me laugh now, was around teaching young boys how to do the washing. It was so bizarre. I'm thinking, because my boys did not know how to do this, and I thought,
Can you get me a copy?
It was those sorts of things that started me going, actually, I've got a flair for writing what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I felt comfortable in that space. And then I did a book called Death by Doormat.
Of course.
Yeah, that's just an ebook I put out a couple of years ago, a mini guide to people pleasers, because I've been a people pleaser my whole life. And I watched other people around me do it too, and I went, oh, God, just why do we do this? Why do I keep reacting that way? So I wrote a book about it, and that helped me actually go, there's a way around this. There's another way around that. There's another way around that. And then when I got a rhythm into doing that kind of writing, then I thought, why not write something a little bit more bigger?
I mean, I often hear that from the lady folk in my life, is I'm such a people pleaser. It's ruining my life. But I mean, where is the line drawn when, say, you need to please people?
Yeah.
Because if you don't care about pleasing people.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you don't dress well, you don't smell good. You probably, the whole procreation of of finding a mate and all that sort of stuff is, and also just to be in a room where people don't hate your guts.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a good point, and I bring that up in the book because I flag it by saying you can't go to the other end of the spectrum. Now, if you're a true people pleaser, you never will, because you might test the waters and then you quickly retract back anyway.
Yeah.
But it is important to, yes, the beauty about being a people pleaser is you've got compassion, you've got empathy for people. You've got to learn more about protecting yourself in a way and not doing things at the detriment of your own growth and values. That's when a people pleaser can really do damage to themselves, but then you can enable other people to keep their poor behavior going on. That's when your people pleasing becomes a bit detrimental. But just pulling it back enough. And it's taken me a lot of years to instill these little ideas that I had that I put in the book to slowly chip away at improving my self-esteem, so I don't feel the need to people please as much as I used to. So it is an incremental change, not a complete swing to the other end of it.
How do you know when you've tipped that point? Is that
how I found out was that I could be in a room and people could have, these are people that I would look up to. Whether it's in, work in a script writing room or where there's
tall people in general.
Just tall, anyone in general, yeah.
Sorry.
No, mate,
it's
I
my
love the dad
joke.
jokes.
Yeah,
dad jokes,
just
mate.
Honk back for us.
It's a thing. I love it. And I think when I started to implement these things and realize I'm no longer frightened of saying, no, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Or in a personal relationship, I used to go, I've got to please my partner all the time. And I can't stand up and go, actually, I don't like that. You know what I mean? When I started to do that and found the courage to do that, and I'm going, that's becoming second nature now. Now I know I've shifted enough where I'm not, I can grow so much more now because I've given myself so much more space instead of worrying about what other people think. And I heard a beautiful saying, there's no point worrying about what other people think because they're too busy worrying about what you think about them. It's such a... It's
the merry-go-round.
It's crazy. It really is. So I think I've had those sort of signs that I've managed to get past, but it took a lot of years.
Now, the book, the idea of the book is about relating to men. And I mean, if we just keep on this theme of people pleasing, I know this is probably an extreme leap, right? But what happens in a case like, like we hear a lot about patriarch and blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff, and I think a lot of men are suffering the bows and arrows of the last 500, 600 years of patriarchy and kings, and like I think about like the Ukraine war. We got these 1.2 million poor, probably 99, probably all of them are men.
Yeah.
These young men, like young, modern, millennial men saying, yes, Mr. Putin, I have to please you so much that I will walk into a field of drones and it's a bit like the World War II or World War One where they're coming out of the trenches and just running into machine gun fire. And I sort of look at those boys and I think, they're doing that, like trying to please, trying to, just be, what's known as a good man to whoever.
Yeah.
And they're just getting wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those same boys are still lumped into that people look at them and say, well, all men are this and all men are violent and all men are this and that and one. And they're in the army. So I mean, how do we as blokes sort of separate ourselves from what is for king and country and what is for our soul's journey?
Yeah, and that's a really good question because I find that I guess it's the fear of consequence. It always comes down to that because soldiers go into battle because they're given an order, and you might get some. And I've only heard podcasts recently talking about the small percentage of people that actually did fire a gun at in all those wars. Yeah. Most of them didn't fire it at the enemy. They're just firing in the air because they didn't want to do this.
Right.
So, but it's the fear of consequence, isn't it? If you raise the level of consequence, then we will respond out of fear and going, well, okay, if I don't do this, either my family suffers or I suffer. And I know that as men, even in modern days, and as a people pleaser, it's the same. It might be an emotional consequence, but it comes from the same place. We fear that we are going to suffer in some way. But if we learn how to deal with suffering, if we actually find resilience and going different ways through suffering, you no longer fear that as much anymore. It's a slight reframing, and it's not different than if you're on the war. Okay, you either do that, it's a kill or be killed. They've built it that way, and
that's a difference. I mean, that's extreme. That's right.
But it still comes. It still comes to the same human feeling: is that if we feel threatened of our own life or the people that we love, we will just bow down, and because we fear what's going to happen. Unfortunately, like I said, we emotionally fear things that aren't necessarily going to happen, like in a people-pleasing sense. I might worry that anyone listening to this, I hope they believe what I have to say or agree with my opinions. And I go, well, once upon a time I would have believed that. Yeah. And I would have been in panic. But now I'm going like, it doesn't matter to me now. Because people may totally disagree with the book and it doesn't matter because I know it comes from a place that is important to me, and I know it comes from a genuine place of love and compassion for my fellow man, and that's all that matters to me. So I don't have the fear of consequence like I used to.
I mean, I suppose when you break it down, you're thinking on the run a lot in life.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about your book is that it, to me, I might not explain this properly, but you sort of break down your options for responses, and that's something I really, really appreciate. And something, here I am as an old man, going, oh yeah, that's not a bad idea, so let alone for the young people. But to say, hold the phone, what is my response, because a lot of time it's, gung-ho, let's knock down the wall and burst through and, get out of my way. And, a lot of times, I know in my life, I go, I had that initial response and it sits with me for a while. But after a while, it alters. And I go, thank goodness I didn't respond like that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I go,
done.
yes. And like with you take that step of saying, look, basically, hold the phone. Does this fit a criteria for you to succeed?
Yeah.
And look at your response. So that's something. Now, is that something you've picked up on yourself, or is that is an educational resource thing you grabbed? Or
everything that I've written about in the book, this is just...
I mean, you get everything from everywhere, don't you?
You do. But I think, like I said, I've drawn upon these 50 years of my life experience, and I go back and I look at the way I behave in things. And yes, when I was a young dad, I was stressed, and my partner and I might argue a little bit, not too bad, but, I would look at the fights, and I would look at, and throughout our whole relationship or anyone that I've had conflict with, and I'd look at how I'd respond, and I'd come away going, oh, that wasn't great. And once the ego simmers down and that tension simmers down, you're kind of like, nah, man, I should have done that better. Back to what I'm saying, I could have been better at that. And then next time it comes around, it's like, okay. And look, I'm going to flag this too. I have actually had counselling over the years for different reasons, and I've found it really beneficial because I might have a different framework of like, okay, let's have a look at why you feel threatened in that situation.
Okay.
And that's what it is. When someone's, butting up against us and we feel like we've got to lash out, it's because we feel threatened. It is back to that war mentality, kill or be killed. Even if it's emotional, you feel the same threat.
Yeah, or fight or flight.
Fight or flight, exactly. And I've done both simultaneously. Fight and then flight. And then, it's as we do, and as men sometimes. And so I think I've looked over the years and thought, how can we improve that? Because sometimes I got sick of going around the roundabout. With a partner, you might go around and you're going in circles. We had this argument 10 years ago.
Totally.
Why are we still doing it?
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. And then I go, and then I watch my young kids now, fully blown adults, and I see their patterns of behavior. And I go, oh, wait a minute. They're either picking up on us or they're doing the same behaviors they did when they were a teenager 15 years ago. And I'm going, that's not great either, because they're in a cycle. So this is why the book is, like you said, it's laid out in a way of like these different areas of our life of how can we just stop, just look at it slightly differently, where it's a win-win for you and the person opposite you. Is always a win-win, even if it's painful, even if you fear something, even if it's you fear that consequence. It's always a win-win if you take long enough to show enough compassion for yourself and that person. And it doesn't take long. It's a few seconds of just going, let's hold the phone.
And we don't need to respond. I mean, that's some of the best advice I've had in my life is to don't respond.
Yeah.
And just wait.
Yeah.
Just like, who says that you have to come up with the instantaneous answer straight away? Was you're a big loser.
That's it. Bruce, in my I've got a quote from Bruce Lee in one of my chapters there. I can't remember it verbatim. I don't have the book in front of me, but he talks about when you're facing a conflict or an enemy, then you allow the cracks to reveal themselves.
Okay.
And basically that's saying, and I think that was part of the conflict chapter I wrote about relationships, was that exactly what you're saying. Don't respond. And if that other person keeps going, then what you're allowing those cracks to reveal themselves. You're actually giving some space because that person might need to vent. You're trying to create safe space for them to vent. If you take it personally each time and push back, you never see the cracks. And you just keep butting heads. And I think that's where his wisdom come into it of like, that's how he approach martial arts.
Okay.
He would never go into offense. It's always defense, and he would just wait for the cracks to appear, and bang, that's when he'd find the cracks in his opponent.
Yeah, okay.
But he transitioned that to a life. Like he was a brilliant man, and it was I always found that quite fascinating.
I mean, the Wumi quote of the crack is where the light gets in as well. It sort of reminded me of that too. Yeah. Where you are wounded and expressing yourself.
Yeah.
Is the beginning of the healing.
Yes.
So and a lot of people don't look at it like that. They just, I've just embarrassed myself, or I've done this, or to be vulnerable enough to say out loud what you feel, even if it's clunky, should be looked upon as being a good thing.
Mate, my whole book, and I think I put it in the intro and throughout it, I literally say the words, you probably realise that I talk a lot about vulnerability because I used to fear it. That was my people pleaser, had to be perfect,
Yep.
boys, student, whatever. When I realised that I could fail and I could be vulnerable and I didn't die, I go, wait a minute, actually, I'm still here. And actually, some people would actually respond in a positive way when you admit failure, vulnerability, and go, I'm really not good at this. I'm sucking at that. I'm just having a terrible time. Quite often you get a different response than you think. And I think that's where we fear that vulnerability, and that's why we put the walls up and the guard up, and we don't want to go there because it's too embarrassing, awkward, uncomfortable. We're not trained how to do it. We don't have our fathers showing us how to do that. We come from a generation, both me and you, had fathers that never would show that. That was a sign of weakness. So when we feel it coming up, that pattern in our mind is that history back when we were kids is saying, don't be weak, don't cry, hold it together. So we've got that neural pattern going round in our head 24/7.
So how do we as sons of fathers sort of honor your father's legacy, but also say I can't be that.
Yeah.
Like it's my father's passed, so it's like. But we had a very productive sort of relationship, which was fantastic. So, but there's also like, how do you sit down and just think how I'm reacting because I live in this post. I was born 16 years after the end of World War II. And you think about the generational fallout of something as big as World War II. You go, wow.
Yeah.
And you go, no wonder they had a lot of cracks in their armour.
Yeah.
There was so much going on. We think now we've got, the turbulence in the world, but, most of our turbulences comes through our constant news feeds. But living through that stuff, like if my dad was from England, London, so, the bombings and...
But they weren't supported after that. They weren't, like these days, there's a lot of more mental health support services for post-traumatic stress and that sort of thing. And they weren't. They were just told, okay, get on with life. But all that stuff was going on inside of them. And I think that, and I agree with you, there's a third section of the book I call Paying It Backwards. And that is that I want to honour the men of the past.
Yeah.
Yes, some of them have done some terrible things, and we've got to let that go. And our own fathers and I talk about my own dad in the book, and he was a country bloke. He had brothers, and his dad died when he was 11. He didn't have the role models.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And he struggled, but he was a bloody good man, and he did what he could, but he couldn't show vulnerability and emotion. He didn't know how. There was no such thing as like, toughen up. Now, but he did what he was taught. And I'll always love him for doing the best that he could. And I think if we can all look at our fathers going, there is some horrendous fathers, I get it. Yep. But even if they still did the best that they had the capacity to do, and you can take those little good bits and go, well, at least I learnt that from him. I might have had a really hard dad, but geez, I learnt some resilience. I learnt how to really muck in and get the job done, and I did learn that from my dad. But there are a lot of things I learnt that I go, you know what, that doesn't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
And I think and it was hard when I was a people pleaser. I wanted to please him and every aspect of him, but I could never reach that sort of image of man because I'm going, but I don't. He was a little racist. He was a little sexist. I didn't believe in those things. It felt awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I love the good things he did. And now I can look back, 30, 40 years ago and going, there's some great stuff he instilled in me. And that's what I carry with me. And that's what I think we can all find something in our past.
I think my kids think that I'm racist and sexist. But you know what I mean? Like, I think I'm really,
No, I think sometimes...
Fantastic.
Yeah, you're brilliant, mate. Yeah, it is.
But they say, you can't say that, Dad. I go,
It's a changing world. I get it. And we've got to... And yes, sometimes in our own ignorance, especially our white ignorance too, we say...
Now, that's racist.
Yeah, I think that's racist against ourselves. But it's true. It's like we're learning. I'd like to think my kids look back and go, yeah, he got a few things wrong. Not wrong, but he did certain things as a dad that I probably wouldn't do as a parent myself. I'd love my kids to be able to turn around and say that to me because then, great, it means they're evolving and they can also decipher what they want to keep that I can teach them and when they go, that doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
And I find it a bit I find it a bit tense if we've got a young generation that will just slam us oldies for going like, you're getting that wrong. It's like, yeah, but can we look at the things that we are getting right and we're trying to teach you, but as long as we're open to learning new things, and, we've got, in a changing world, we are learning a lot of new things.
That's right. And, I mean, obviously what worries me in a sense of transformative thinking is that a lot of times, there'll be a whole lot of stuff put into the what is politically correct, and that's this ever changing big bundle of things, and I'm I look at myself as a social butterfly, social butterfly, yes,
Definitely.
but a social entrepreneurial sort of guy, I think of myself, hoping to think that for the greater good of all is probably a good way of trying to say, is this a correct action or not? It's a sort of a yardstick. But what's happened, I feel, over the last half a dozen years is that what is called woke, the woke ideas come in, and sometimes I feel that there's a bit of paralysis that comes into it, and the wokeness becomes almost like a pop cultural throwaway line. And so all those good things that maybe are getting changed, all of a sudden they get rebundled back together, relabeled, and thrown out. And all of a sudden, all those people, those next generation who are trying desperately to sort of reconfigure what's right and what's wrong. All of a sudden, they're behind the eight ball again.
And I find that, that's, and I hate saying the phrase, and I talk about this in my book. Sorry, but I know that there's a part of it where I talk about men diminishing under that pressure of that weight. And that doesn't help when we're looking at the changing world and we're just going, well, why do I even bother? There's too many aspects to it that I'm going to get wrong, or I'm going to offend someone, so I'm not even going to engage. That's not great, because not only do you just pull away from society, and some go to the extreme and completely cut themselves out. And I had a mate do that. So, that's really touch and go with men. If we're just going to shun, or anyone that's, gets stuck into that little merry-go-round. But also the young people, like you said, if we're not mentors to them, if we can't ride these things, and yes, political correctness in some ways, they've said it's gone too far, but swinging back and forward and that sort of thing. But, at the end of the day, if we can just be solid as men, as mentors for the next generation, then we can help them sift through that and go, what do you believe? Not what is popular on social media, not what everyone says, oh, you can't say this. It's like, well, actually, can you or can you not? Can we have a discussion about this? Who is it actually offending? Like, open up, having those conversations. Like, I would, if a young person pulls me and says, oh, you can't say that, then I certainly won't bow down and go, oh, I'm sorry. But I also won't push back and say, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. I will want to know. I'll go, okay, then tell me. Who am I offending? Am I offending you? Because if I am, I don't mean to do that, but I'd like to know how I'm offending you. Like I said, I'm a curious person who likes to drill down and go, what do you actually mean by that? Because that's, again, letting the cracks appear. If they've got something valid to say, then great. And you take it on board, you go, wow, I never saw it that way. And I've learned a lot from young people, and I'm going, when we had a really good conversation, I go, I've never heard anyone say it that way. That is so inspiring. And I'm so glad the next generation think like that. But I've also allowed people to go, oh, well, it just is the way it is. And I'm going, no, it's not a good enough answer. You can't tell me not to say something or do something if you can't back it up. Oh, well, I'm offended. For who? For that people that you're not even connected with? Like, you can't, like, that's not a real proper conversation we're having. So I think it's just having the courage to step into hearing what people have to say, but encouraging that next generation to follow their gut feeling, because it will change again as they become adults.
Well, social media is a funny thing, isn't it? Because it's, in a way, it's one-sided at one level.
Yeah.
You can say something, you go at thousands of people. Everyone's got this porthole to, a couple of thousand people. And how much do you think that sets a paralysis as well? It's because I read something somewhere about people who are educated. What's happening more is that the more input, say, to the Instagram feeds and the Facebook feeds are by people who haven't got a higher education, the people with the higher educational standards, are actually backing off. So it's interesting that maybe a more informed opinion is more. If you're putting out a more informed opinion, you're out setting yourself up for your own liability. Whereas, like, there seems to be this sort of trash talk or the insults or whatever. It just can be thrown out there, and if you know, no one's going to sue you if you haven't got any money for a start. You know, so you sort of almost you live a little bit below the law, and these things become damaging. All of a sudden, it's this social underclass is sort of rising with a lot of like sloganistic, one line of throwaway lines that you're meant to live your life by. You know, and I find that as a man, I find that very confusing. And I think for young people, do you engage or don't you engage? It's a big stage to fail on, isn't it?
It is, and it's a lot of pressure because a lot of that generation, that's all they've ever known. Now, we've known a life when we didn't have that. So we can always pull away from it going, oh, we can exist without social media and without that connection because we did it for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So, but this next generation only know that. And and that fear of like, disengaging from something, not being fully plugged in, really threatens their existence to some. And I believe that because that's what they've grown up knowing and idolizing in a lot of way. But I feel, have we, it's a delicate thing to walk, but as parents, when all that started coming in and we are, we're the ones that gave them the laptop at a young age. We're the ones that gave them the phone at the young age. We're the ones that said, oh, look, it keeps them distracted. Oh, look, they're busy. That gives me time to myself. We're the ones that actually fed that. We created the technology. We fed it to them. And now we're not liking what's coming back. So we'd still have to take accountability, and I don't mind. I understand there are issues with, pulling kids out of social media at the moment for those living remotely and not having that connected, community. I get there are downsides to it, but geez, I hope that how the legislation's changed that we've got a chance. We can step up and go, well, let's take our kids out. Let's get them away from the screens. Can we go back to that and actually give a bit more time away from it so then they can experience enough confidence in life outside of that? Because if we do that, they will, guarantee it's human nature. You walk out on a beautiful day and nature and you forget that you've got a phone. You forget, you just breathe it in and you listen to music and you just engage with people, face to face. Then suddenly you go, oh, that was a great experience. And they're going to want more of that. So, I feel like we've got a chance to do this now, to actually maybe just give them a bit of encouragement to sort of have engagement outside of what's online.
I mean, how much are we responding with our own nostalgia, and how dangerous is that too? In one sense of like, when we were kids, we used to play in the creek and kick a football and this and that, and you'd see visible action, and then all of a sudden, stranger danger. So all of a sudden it's us. Who was kicking the football. And running around, walking out the door at 10 o'clock in the morning, coming back at 5, and and Mum going, "Why back so early?" And did you buy me some cigarettes?
That's it. Oh yes.
But then we start screaming out, stranger danger, insurance problems, the health risk of this.
We live in, just live in fear again.
But we're the ones who are doing it. Our generation's the one who's doing it. And then we look at our kids and go, why aren't you out there doing this and why aren't you doing that?
Exactly. We fed it to them.
That's right. So
we can't, we've just got to, again, take a breath and just go, okay, how do we reapproach this? Because right now, I think it's now had enough proof of 15 or whatever years of online torture that people go, this isn't that healthy. It can be great in so many things. It really connects people in a positive way, and people spread some beautiful messages of love and support and can rally up some really good, like I said, support for all sorts of really good programs and what have you. But there are a lot of toxic stuff that it's proven that how do you wade through it, which means you can't indulge in it 24/7, like we just get, it's a drug, it's addictive. We've just got to make that conscious decision to go, okay, we've got to turn that off. And we literally can just turn it off. Like we can, everyone has the autonomy to do that. children not so much. I mean, they're still learning about autonomy.
Yeah.
But once they become an adult, even teenagers, if we teach them autonomy and going like, even though they say, I don't have a choice, I've got to respond. No, you don't. What's going to happen, back to what I said before about fear and consequence, what happens if you don't respond to that thing that your friends are saying, piling on social media? What happens if you don't? Yeah, that's right. Let's go through it. Let's go through that response. And we give them that kind of support to the point where the cracks reveal themselves. Either they go, okay, well, I guess, is someone going to come along bashing on your door and telling you why you didn't respond? Oh, no, they wouldn't bother doing that. That's right. Because everyone just sits behind the keyboard. Yeah. So it's just unpacking the fears that come along with it. I think that's our job.
How do we talk about men in a context like we are now without bringing up the subject, which is horrible, is suicide? Men 2 times, 3 times as likely, 3 times?
7 times.
Oh, yeah, it's even less than I thought. Why? Yeah. Why is this? Are men lonely?
Oh, mate, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head straight away. That loneliness and disengaging. This is what I find really. It's such a paradox. We talk about how our online world is everyone's brought together. We can see everything in the world all at once. Yet people are lonelier than ever. Again, they're not physically engaging with people. They're seeing, look, there's some great things. I've seen gamers, having community of people. They'll connect with people across the other side of the world and have a great connection with that. Yeah. But are they connecting with people, face to face as much? And I feel that if you don't have that human connection, this is tribal.
It's still stranger danger.
It is. Well, it is. It is. I guess it is, but yeah, I don't know. It's a real tough, and I'm no expert in it. And I talk about it here and there. I did the push-up challenge a couple of years ago, and it was from my mate Matthew, who a primary school friend who unfortunately took himself out of this world in his mid-20s. Had 2 kids, and he had difficult challenges that he obviously couldn't talk to anyone about. Yeah, because this is 15 years ago, 30 years ago, probably, and other family members have attempted it, and sometimes it's a mixture of loneliness, and sometimes it's a mixture of like, I don't see a way out of this situation I've got myself into. Shame and embarrassment. There can be, revenge if you feel like you can't live without this person that's just dumped you, and there's this thing, well, I'll get them back. There's that, and you go, well, that's someone who's disconnected and doesn't see another option. And if we don't see other options, then, we'll go to the extreme, and men are more capable of doing that. The numbers prove it, that men are more capable of doing that because we have that adrenaline that fuels us, and we could just push ourselves to the limit, unfortunately, too far.
Yeah, obviously suicide is sort of one form of risk-taking, and that is a big part of the psychological profile of a young man.
Yeah, yeah. And I talk about it. I'll talk about it in a few different platforms around, back to what you're saying about the loneliness. And, one of the things I talk about is how we've lost a bit of mateship. We all withdraw in our own little bubbles and we don't reach out to our mates often enough. And sometimes that one little message can say, hey, mate, how you going? You could turn that person's life around. You don't know what they were about to do. Someone that you just get that instinct going, something's not right about them. Oh, they'll be right. If it's too embarrassing to do anything about it, you can still just send a message saying, hey, you want to grab a beer? I'm going out to here, whatever, or grab a coffee, or even just, hey, how's it going? I just thought about something or other and just you came in my mind. Something that doesn't feel too confronting if you find that embarrassing, but you still could change that person's life. They might think, oh my God, someone's thinking about me. I'm not so lonely. It's such a teeter.
Men are good at doing projects. Together, like you. That's what I found in my life anyway. Like I'm being a musician. Most of my friends are musicians from the past, and come over and sit down and play the guitar and have a chat and blah blah blah. But it's it's around that the ingredients of communication is the fact that you might be creating something or doing something. It's always hard to say, but it can be as little as just helping someone clean out a shed or
It's
perfect
perfect.
like that. And
I'm so glad you brought it up like that, because I find that's I heard this great thing about, I can't remember the saying, but about men. They don't have to sit across and look at each other like we are right now.
Yeah.
They can just walk side by side and just talk about any shit they like.
Yeah.
Me and my dad used to go fishing down at Cape Jervis, down at Rapid Bay, and we would fish for hours, never speak, except like, oh, get more bait, lad, or whatever. Never spoke, and they were the most fondest memories I had, because we didn't have to speak. We were just fishing. We'd catch stuff, and even in this quiet, we would just be together. And like you said, working on a project together. Again, it's that tribal thing that we miss as men. And if we're not with each other in the same room as each other, we don't have to talk about feelings. And that's the thing that I find a lot of men think, oh, I don't want to do that. No, you don't have to. Work on a project. Help mate clean out his yard, or just chop some wood, or whatever it is. Work on the car. That's why we love working on cars together, because we love doing stuff with our hands. We love succeeding. We love sharing knowledge. That's a huge thing that mates love to do. But, it doesn't have the same reaction unless it's faced in the same space as each other.
I get a visceral sense of, empowerment and pride and whatever by building things. And I think it's a real
definitely
innate sort of characteristic of the male. And we probably don't see that a lot now, as in build something, sit down and,
I guess technology's changed. We can't work under the hood of a car like
no, I was going to say that. What it was, what you mentioned before.
And we can't do I'm not a great handyman, but I like to work on stuff around the property.
Yeah.
But, I know a lot of mates that used to be builders, but because they're not compliant and everything, they've given it up, but they are brilliant at what they were doing. But because they don't tick all the boxes now, men can't just go and go, I'm just going to build a shed. Oh, no, you've got to get council. We've got to get a licensed builder, licensed electrician. And fair enough.
Up to $15,000 in fines.
That's it. Yeah.
What?
And look,
I just want to build a shed.
That's it. I understand the reasons for that. So therefore, we must replace it with something.
Yeah.
And what if that is, we still got to work on that.
It's AI, all the new technologies are going to be taking away that the male role of going out into the big wide world and slaying a few dragons and bringing it home to cook. So that's going to change too. So we're really facing a precipice at the moment, and it's really a good time to put the warning signs out to say this is a time to really tread carefully with yourselves, as in maleness, because it's got to be a redefinition of what that doing sense is,
and that's where creativity can come into it. And I really encourage. I think everyone has a creative streak, and I think right now, like exactly like you said, the timing's perfect to start thinking about, okay, I can't do things the way I used to do them. The world is not the way it used to be 20, 30, 50 years ago. It never will be. No. So if we've got to accept the reality, it won't be the same, nor should it, or we're just going backwards. We're not evolving. And yes, AI and technology is taking away some of those things that we used to perhaps love as men, or we love because we watch our fathers love them. And we take that love on going, oh my God, they loved it so much. And I just want to do it because they look so happy when they were doing it. And that would bring joy to me. And because if we can't do that, and we go, well, where's my joy? What have I got left? And that's when we get lonely. That's when we start the slippery slope. But now we've got to start looking in and going, well, what can I do? This is where we have to build resilience. We have to have conversations. We have to talk with each other and just go, shit, I'm lost. I'm just finding week to week and I'm just not connecting. I don't know what to do. I'd love to build something and, get some opinions from other mates, from other guys out there.
And not just an IKEA cot,
we can't just live with an Allen key, mate. We need more than that. Like, that's it. It's going to require a little bit more getting your hands dirty. Yeah.
I mean, we did the Wounded Man tour. For want of better words, over Kangaroo Island.
Yeah.
And part of that was interesting. It's a bit of there's some secrecy involved. We're about to talk about a few things, but but the idea, one of the components of it was actually finding a local and helping them fix something up or clean something up or being of service. How important is that for the male?
Mate, that is one of the most, I think that's towards the end of the book, Paying It Forward, where I say for us to really find our true value as men, it's, I feel like we're surrounded by always needing to gain and build up our wealth and status and all those sorts of things. But I find that, that active service is the most rewarding thing you can do, because guess what? No one can take that away from you. No matter your situation, it requires no resources to actually be of service to someone.
Yeah.
Really, it's just you. It takes your choice. That's it. And you can say, I don't have time. Yeah, you do. You choose to have time or you choose not to. If you can be fully autonomous when it comes to service, and you're only doing something good for someone else, it is going to be a positive feedback to you. And that impact on that person lifts us up as men. We feel good. It's if we're working on a mate's car, and he can't get it going, but we just figure out, you just got to tweak this a little, and it goes, and the look on that guy's face, oh my God, you just saved me a fortune.
Yeah.
How are we going to feel with that?
You got petrol in there, mate. You got
That's
some
it.
petrol.
That's it. We feel amazing.
I did that with a lawnmower once. I can't get this bloody thing going. Mate comes around and he goes, yeah, but try putting the petrol in it. And I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know what? I bet he felt good.
I reckon he did.
Not just making you feel like, oh, geez, mate, you should have thought of petrol. But, it was an act of service.
Yeah, that's right.
No matter how small.
I'll tell you what, our hour has just flown by.
Are you kidding me? God, I thought we were going to break. We're already done.
No, that's it. No. Look, this is we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah. I'll come back. We'll talk about more stuff.
Oh, that'd be great. So, Shaping Tomorrow's Man. So, when are you expecting it to hit the shelves?
At the moment, the pre-sales will happen in June, and the official launch will be in July. I haven't got a venue or anything sorted out yet. But I'm also got a YouTube channel now. I've been doing some little mini videos.
Yeah.
So you just look me up, Albert Jamay, and you'll see a playlist of Shaping Tomorrow's Man. And some of them are little extracts from the book or just things I've just been wanting to add to so people can get a taste of what I'm on about.
Yep.
And if they want to jump on my newsletter, which is called Life Quotes with Goats. Just quickly, GOATS is the acronym Greatest of All Times.
Oh, okay.
I take a quote from the likes of Bruce Lee, Gandhi, Michelle Obama, Abraham Lincoln, all these famous quotes in the world that we've had all over the history, and I'll unpack them into today's modern times and see what they actually meant by that. And how we can, as men, well, actually, that's not just for men, that's for everyone.
Yeah.
How we can apply it to modern day.
They're very resilient goats, aren't they?
That's the thing. They're curious, they're resilient, they're cheeky. I've got 3 of them on the property.
Yep.
And I find that they are I just love these little things. They're so annoying at times when they escape, but they keep coming back. They're loyal. And I just think that, so there's a little double entendre with the wordplay there, but you can find me on those platforms and keep an eye out.
No worries. And that was absolutely beautiful. So good on you. Can feel your passion, which is a beautiful thing. And and we it's a very important subject. And also, if we did touch on the subject of suicide, so if you do need some help, Lifeline of 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue 1300 22 46 36 if you need someone to chat to about your feelings. But thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.